Hello, friends. Why do Christmas trees have trouble sewing? They can't stop dropping their needles. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. The walls of the new house crawled. Mom said it was just the heat warping the old wallpaper. We moved from Oregon to Louisiana when I was 12, a 35-hour drive littered with gas stations and motel rooms. I missed the rain and the soft skies and our green backyard with the tire swing. I missed my dad, left behind with the swing in Oregon. The house we moved to was on the edge of the woods, mosquitoes the only thing that stirred in the trees that seemed too tired to move in a heat. We unloaded our lives from the back seats of the car. The house a strange and echoing thing without any furniture except the kitchen appliances and the beds upstairs. We unpacked until the sky turned pink outside, the sun slowly melting into the treetops. Mom and my little sister Jamie sat either side of me on the back porch, cross-legged without any chairs. We watched the light change, so different from the pale sunsets back home. Then I realized that this new sky was home. A rustle in the long grass growing head-high round the side of the clapboard house turned us away. A man walked towards us, shirt sleeves pushed past his elbows. Mom's face lit up with recognition as he raised one hand in greeting. "Bill. Hi, come join us," she said to him, standing to her feet and cocking a hip. "Evening, Leela thought I'd come and check you, and the girls were all settled." His voice rolled with a Louisiana lilt, all Bayou vowels. I and Jamie looked at each other. Bill reached the porch and bent down to our level, hands on his denim-covered knees. "Hey the girlies." He got no reaction from us and chuckled over his shoulder to Mom, who smiled back. "Why," he continued, "both almost as pretty as your mama here." "Bill is the nice man who sold us this house," she explained. Was she blushing? Jamie scowled, freckles scrunching on the bridge of her nose. Bill and Mom talked a while on the porch, and eventually, we were sent to bed. I and my little sister now shared a room painted white. The pink bunk bed in our old house wouldn't fit in the car, so we now slept in the twin beds already there when we arrived, pushed to either side of the room with a cross hanging in the middle of the wall between them. We grew up sleepless and afraid in those first few days, in the dark, Mum too absent-minded to fill the empty light fixtures in the house until a week after we arrived. When the sun set, all that separated our bedroom from the river outside was the window, lace curtain adrift in the breeze that pushed through the gaps in the frame. Jamie, long-haired and the braver of us, would watch our bedroom door every night until her eyes fell shut. Jamie was the only 7-year-old I knew who slept without a stuffed animal. Instead, she cuddled the baseball bat our dad had given her the year before. Jamie missed her little league team almost as much as she missed him. I slept with my back to the door, terrified if I joined her I'd see something too. Jamie finally told me why over breakfast a few weeks later, milk dribbling down her chin from the Lucky Charms she was cramming into her mouth. He was there again. Mom sang softly to herself in the background as she poured more coffee. I had always loved the smell of it, had begged Mom to let me have a cup. She laughed when I spat the bitter liquid straight back into the cup. Mom hadn't laughed much lately and the room had seemed lighter, sunshine creeping slow and hazy up the countertops in the late morning. Jamie's words brought that dark feeling right back in, the one that kept me sleeping with my back to the door. What? Fear fluttered in my stomach, but I didn't know why. Jamie tilted her head. I was expecting her to giggle and tell me the punchline, or the story she had evidently made up. Instead, she stared right at me, tucking her hair behind her ear, serious and small at the kitchen table. The Dogman. He was watching us all night, but I wouldn't let him in. She scrunched her nose, crushing her freckles, and ran out into the backyard, Mom calling after her not to stray too far into the trees. I have to drive into town to get some things. Why don't you go with her, baby? Mom asked me, brushing my cheek with her thumb. The thought of being on my own in the house made my skin crawl, so I ran after Jamie, the back door still swinging. She was standing right on the edge of the grass, rusted chain link fence marking the border between our house and the woods. She was staring into the trees, so still, I had to look twice to see if she was breathing. The air hung silent. I reached for her, suddenly afraid if I didn't touch her she would never move again and I'd be left alone. Jamie. I called, hands outstretched like I was praying. She turned suddenly, hair falling into her eyes. She moved so fast. What were you looking at? I asked, pushing it from her face. I lifted my eyes past her, into the trees. Shadows fell dark green to the tangles of plants growing at their roots, bugs singing in the swamp grass. There was nothing else there. It was the Dogman Kenner. He was waving at me. She shrugged, soft cotton of her Care Bears t-shirt slipping off one sun-browned shoulder. I didn't wave back. I dragged her inside and locked the back door with the keys Mum kept on a hook by the window. Jamie argued with me the whole time, desperate to ride her bike around with the kids from neighboring houses down the red dirt roads. I refused and kept the door locked until Mom came back, even when Jamie pulled my hair. It was past dinner time when she finally came home, arms full of groceries in brown paper bags. Jamie ran to her, yelling and waving her hands. She pulled up short in the hallway before she could reach her, as Bill stepped into the kitchen with a smile, bone white. "Hey the girlies," he said, dumping more paper bags on the counter. "What's all this fussin'?" Mom, Jamie said she saw. Behind him, Jamie shook her head. Just once, but it was enough. Something in the woods. I trailed off. Bill laughed and ruffled Jamie's hair. She ducked out from under his hand and moved across the room to stand next to me, tucking her fingers through the belt loops in my shorts like she did when she was nervous. When she needed something to hold on to. Mom smiled apologetically at Bill. He chuckled, slow and loud in our small kitchen. Outside, June bugs twirled through the night air. "I'm sure this too just saw a critter or a hunter after it out there in the woods. Nothing to concern yourself with, Leela," he said. He stayed for dinner that night and sat on the porch with Mom long after we were sent to bed. I woke up in the blue dark, sheets sticking to my back. I needed water. I looked for Jamie, curled around her baseball bat, hair a tangle of blonde on the pillow. I turned to the doorway. Mom would leave the now replaced hall light on for me at night, knowing I was scared of the dark but too proud to admit to at 12. Silhouetted in the yellow was the figure of a man. Its body was tall and filled the frame, nothing out of the ordinary, except for the fact that it was standing there. But its head, like a wolf, outlined in the dark. Two white eyes stared at me, passive and still. I could hear it breathe, panting. Like a dog. Footsteps on the stairs stopped halfway, the telltale creak of the old boards. Too scared to do anything but lie still, I fell back asleep, uneasy. My pillow still smelled like the detergent Mom used back home. I dreamed of running through the woods in my bare feet. I told no one. Every night Jamie still watched our bedroom door, green eyes wide in the dark. And now I joined her. The days kept coming, sun-drenched, and slow. Jamie, loud and brave with dirt under her nails. made friends with the kids in the houses around us, and every day would run wild with them in the woods. Warnings from parents about the dangers of the river always ignored. I spent my days with the boy who lived in the one-story house opposite us. Jake. He was soft-spoken and a year older than me. We met when his mum, Amy, banged on our door one Wednesday afternoon, dragging him by the hand. She had an infectious laugh and would often come over unannounced after that, bringing Mom sweet tea and cigarettes. They would sit on lawn chairs and talk until the moths came out to kiss the porch lights. Jake loved to draw, and I would sit with him for hours by the river, watching him capture the catfish that dreamed beneath the surface or the dragonflies with their hum of wings. Louisiana was growing on me and Jamie, finally settling in amongst the hazy summer nights and cricket sounds. That was until she disappeared. The week before my little sister disappeared began like any other that summer. The days stretched golden and lazy, and Jamie and her friends had begun to swim in the river on days when the heat was too much. You could hear the sounds of their laughter bouncing through the woods, shaking the birds from the trees, and waking the butterflies from the wildflowers that grew at the edges of the bayou. Because of this, Jake and I had started venturing further and further into the woods to escape their noise that scared off the animals he would try so patiently to draw. I was angry with Jamie, always bringing noise and chaos wherever she went, but Jake didn't mind. It was a Saturday in late July, and I and Jake were walking deeper, past the creek and the white cross nailed to a cypress tree trailing Spanish moss like a child bride. Every so often I'd catch him looking back at me as if he had to check I was still there. We reached a clearing and Jake abruptly stopped. A tree grew alone in the center, older than us both, trunk weathered and sun-bleached by the years. Covering the base in heaps were walnut bouquets of baby breath, pink flowers, wrapped in plastic shrouds, and wilting in the heat. Bouquets piled underneath had begun to rot into the dirt. Butterflies landed hesitant among the fresh flowers, wary of the smell of death beneath. Stuffed toys sat atop the decay, a pink bunny missing an eye, a lamb with a satin bow around its neck stained with mud. Candles, some painted with the faded Virgin Mary like the ones in church, were lit among the toys and flowers and cards, a steady flicker in the shade of the trees. I wondered who was lighting them. A bottle of Jack Daniels filled with white roses jostled for space with a small statue of an angel, face in its hands. And covering everything were the photographs of the same four girls. Some were middle school pictures, smiling for the camera with gaps in their teeth, photo frames starting to rust. Some were family photographs, some baby pictures. A girl stood waist deep in the river in a sundress grinning at the camera. A girl sat in the bed of a blue pickup truck, arms around a doe-eyed Labrador. A girl stood hand in hand with a woman, both in their Sunday best, ribbons in their hair. A girl blew out the 7 candles on her birthday cake, eyes squeezed shut as she wished. All of them with long, blonde hair. I wrapped my arms around myself, digging my nails into my skin. I felt cold despite the sun. Jake? I turned to him, uncertain. He scrubbed at his eyes, hands coming away wet. He didn't answer, just grabbed my hand and pulled me away. He wouldn't talk to me as he pulled me back through the woods, ignoring all my questions until I gave up asking. We cleared the trees and jumped the fence into my backyard. He was still holding my hand. Jake sat me on the porch and took my shoulders, turning me to face him. I wasn't gonna tell you, 'cause my mama said it would just scare you all. He looked away for a minute, mouth downturned, hands await on my shoulders. That right there on the tree? Those girls all disappeared last year. Nobody knows what happened or nothing, just that they never came back. I had never seen a boy cry before and caught one of the tears dripping off his chin on my thumb. Couldn't bear to see it fall. He smiled for me, shaky but sweet. One of them was my cousin Abby. He hesitated. I taught her to ride a bike. He turned to face the trees, as if to say that was that. Eyes sad with the memory. 13, and already too sad. We sat in easy silence on the porch, leaning against each other until it turned dark and Jamie emerged from the woods like some half-wild thing, grinning from ear to ear with leaves in her hair. I grabbed her into a hug, closing my eyes and resting my chin on her head. She complained I was crushing her to death but hugged me back just as hard. That night Jake taught me and Jamie to catch lightning bugs with our bare hands, laughing as Jamie screamed with delight, chasing them like stars around our backyard, wishing again and again on everyone she caught. Jake whispered to me that soon the weather would turn too cold for them and they would curl up and die in the grass. But for now, they were here, and they were beautiful. Amy came to pick him up on her way back from work, saying his daddy had dinner waiting. She asked me where Mom was, brow crinkling with worry, probably wondering if I and Jamie had any dinner waiting for us. I just smiled and said she'd be home soon. I made me and Jamie peanut butter sandwiches and brushed her hair in front of the TV, tying it into 2 perfect blonde braids to keep out the tangles. She fell asleep with her head on my lap and her thumb in her mouth. Mom finally came home. Bill was with her, but I knew that even before he stepped in after her, hearing the low purr of his truck out in the driveway. She stumbled when she bent to kiss my cheek, her lipstick smeared, and her breath strange and fruity, making my eyes water. Bill leaned against the doorway, smiling in his blue jeans as Mum giggled when she knocked over my glass of juice with her high heel. I carried Jamie upstairs, her body heavy with sleep, and put her to bed, carefully tucking her baseball bat in between her hands. I fell asleep to the sound of Mom laughing too loud, TV blaring white noise. As I closed my eyes, I thought I saw a silhouette in the doorway, but I wasn't scared because the head wasn't a dog's head, it was a man's. I woke up to Mom screaming. It was morning, and Jamie's bed was empty. I ran downstairs, 2 at a time, heartbeat like a baby bird learning to fly. Mom was in the kitchen, pancakes on the stove turning the room syrupy. Jamie was sat at the kitchen table. The 2 perfect braids I'd done for her the night before were gone. Her hair was gone, hacked away to just above her shoulders. Mom whirled around and pointed the spatula at me accusingly. "Kenna, did you do this to your sister?" Her voice was strained as she tried not to shout. Mom never yelled at us. I shook my head, numb. Mom nodded, turning off the stove and sitting down, pulling Jamie onto her lap. Mom held her face in her hands, forcing her to look into her eyes. "Baby, I'm not mad," she said, voice now calm. "I just want to know why." She ran a hand through Jamie's ragged hair, distracted. She held out an arm for me and I leaned against her, breathing in. She smelled like herself again, like detergent and honey. Like Mom. "I know this move hasn't been easy," she said, brushing her eyes clear. "I know I haven't made it easy," she continued, voice quiet. "This is my fault," she finished, sad but steady. We sat and held each other in the sun-filled kitchen, and it felt like if we held each other long enough, the cracks that had slowly grown in our lives would end. Mom took Jamie upstairs to the bathroom and sat her on the side of the tub, fixing the ends of her hair as best she could with nail scissors. The phone sang from downstairs, calling her away. Jamie turned to me, eyes wide and solemn. She tugged me towards her, small hands hooking onto my belt loops, determined. "I didn't do it, Kenna," she said. "It was the Dogman. He came and he took my hair." She looked out into the hall to check Mom wasn't coming back. "I don't wanna sleep in our room tonight, Kenna." "Okay. I'm scared." "Okay," I said. That night, I and Jamie built a blanket fort in the living room, saying we wanted to sleep in there. Mom just laughed at us and helped, even strung up some Christmas lights inside. Mom cooked dinner for the first time all week, real dinner, not just microwave meals. We ate inside the fort, faces covered in the glow from the rainbow lights, blues and reds, and pinks. We had built the fort around the TV and Mom stuck in an old movie I hadn't watched since I was Jamie's age. A knock on the front door pulled us away from the screen. Mom untangled herself from the nest of cushions and blankets and stuffed toys and went to answer. I suddenly felt like Mom was on a boat being pulled out to sea, leaving me and Jamie behind on the shore, left helpless by the tide. I could tell from the way her voice changed it was Bill. I tried to focus on the movie, but I heard Mom go upstairs and come down a few minutes later, the sound of her high heels on the wooden floor. She lifts back the entrance to the fort and smiled, mouth shiny and red with her lipstick. "I'm going out with Bill tonight, we'll only be a few hours. Will you two will be alright?" I could smell her perfume, the one she used to wear for Dad. "I don't have to go," she said. I noticed she had done her hair, piled carefully on top of her head. She looked so pretty in the Christmas light glow, younger in the half-dark. I just wanted her to be happy. I shoved Jamie and she smiled up at Mom with me. "Go, Mama, we'll be okay," she said, glaring at me and rubbing her arm. Mom blew us a kiss and she was gone, perfume left behind. The front door slammed and we were alone. Jamie punched me in the arm hard. Payback. I glared at her until her mouth twitched and we both dissolved into giggles, settling down to finish the movie. We fell asleep with our legs overlapping, Jamie's steady breathing lulling me to sleep like the ocean. The next morning, I woke up alone. A mess of blankets next to me marked where Jamie had been. I stretched and crawled out of the fort. The kitchen was dark, and I drank orange juice straight from the carton in the white fridge light. The morning was blue outside, dawn not quite ready to replace the dark. A few birds braved the empty garden and the trees rustled in the wind. I sat on the porch with my feet in the grass and watched dawn slowly light up the clouds, a blur of dazed yellows and peach. I assumed Jamie had gone to sleep with Mom upstairs or was back in our room. I was wrong. I went upstairs to drag her out of bed, bored with being alone. I checked our room, the bed's unslept in and empty. The window hung open, the room turned cold with the night. A moth hid in the corner of the lace curtains as I went to close the window. I watched it raise its brown wings, paper thin, early light through the glass making them see-through. I brushed it with my hand until it flew away, and I closed the window behind it. I checked the bathroom, also empty. I checked my mum's room. Mum lay in her underwear, above the covers. Her hair had come to loose across her face, in gentle waves. She was beautiful, even with last night's makeup smudged across her eyes. Her shoes and clothes were scattered on the floor where she left them. I hadn't heard her come in, but it had obviously been late. She was sleeping alone. I shook her awake, panic crawling the walls of my ribcage. We ran back downstairs, checked the kitchen. Empty. Ran into the living room, tearing apart the fort, throwing pillows and blankets. Empty. We ran outside into the garden. Empty. I screamed my sister's name into the trees. They gave no reply. Jamie was gone.